And today, we're here to discuss the topic, Engaging Youth to Advance Sustainable Cities and Communities. In this area, the role of youth is growing quite fast, and that's a big change from 20, 10, and even 5 years ago. Before, youth input was not deemed as important, but that's changing, and in many places, it's already changed. Around the world, you're seeing more youth involved in their communities. Greta Thunberg and other teenagers of the youth climate strike. The Parkland teenagers led a movement for safer communities. And of course, the He for She movement started by Emma Watson, and the list goes on. So one might ask, why is this happening today and now? And I think there's two reasons for that. First, young people, because of their greater access to the world around them, are becoming more aware of the future and its impact on them, and they want to help. Their interest and care about this world is frankly quite inspiring. Second, I think as more young people become more involved and are making an impact, there's a growing awareness of the positive contribution that youth can make. Youth are often connected to a community in ways that can help greater understanding. Programs are more likely to be effective with youth involvement because you have buy-in and a sense of shared ownership in the problem and the solution. And they bring that young voice and fresh ideas and a youth perspective, something that is so needed. Having youth take part in community development also helps them become more aware and understanding of the problems and complexities and helps build their own capabilities as they become adults. So not only is it beneficial for young people in their own development, it's good for the community, such that both benefit, and this has a carry-forward effect. It truly does take a village, but we need to remember that that village includes youth. So, let's move forward with our discussion. We've got an outstanding group assembled today who bring broad and diverse perspectives on this important topic, beginning with our first keynote speaker. I would like to give the warmest thanks to the United Nations Department of Global Communications for co-hosting this event and for their continued and impressive efforts to engage youth in the work of the United Nations. Your work has benefited so many of the FAF community, and we are very excited for the upcoming 68th UN Civil Society Conference on Building Inclusive and Sustainable Cities and Communities, for which you have given youth a more amplified voice than ever before. And so now I'm very pleased to introduce our opening keynote speaker for the day, Jeffrey Brez, who is Chief of NGO Relations, Advocacy, and Special Events at the Outreach Division of the United Nations Department of Global Communications. Jeff's extraordinary work in international humanitarian aid and development assistance has spanned more than a decade and covered a range of issues including children's and women's rights, refugee assistance, health, education, environmental sustainability, anti-corruption, and climate change. His greatly diverse experience includes work in strategic communications, media, policy consultation, and of course, he has played a great role in supporting youth at the Department of Global Communications. Thank you very much, Jeff. It is an honor to give you the floor.
Hey everybody, thank you so much. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you to Friendship Ambassadors Foundation, and of course all of you for taking the time to be here today, for taking the time out of your schedule to come to the United Nations today. I appreciate the chance to come to speak to you, and I have a couple of things to say, but the truth is that I'm really excited to hear what you have to say and to stay and listen to your conversation. So I'm going to sit over there after I'm done speaking up here and listen to your conversations and the panels and the feedback that you're bringing here today. So thanks in advance for that, because I probably won't have the time to say goodbye after that. So I'm going to start off by guessing a few things about all of you today here in the room. Could be wrong, but I'm going to go ahead and guess. So I'm going to guess that you feel passionate about world peace and the ability of people to live in secure situations and secure environments. I'm going to guess that you believe in the inherent dignity and equal rights of every single member of the human family. And I'm going to guess and hope that you are inspired by the Sustainable Development Goals. Do we? So maybe not every single 17 of the goals, but at least one in particular perhaps, or a couple. And you believe, I'm guessing again, that if people, communities, governments, companies, not-for-profits, scientists, faith-based leaders come together, all of us, we can achieve these 17 goals. I know we can, and I hope that you believe it too. After all, 193 member states of the United Nations would not negotiate over 3 years and listened over that period to millions of people and companies and organizations around the world, get their feedback, and come up with a plan that's not doable. It doesn't seem like that would be the case. Of course it's doable. And I think you are here because you truly believe that we can achieve all of these 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And maybe you think also that the UN has an important role to play in that overall picture. So before I go any further, I wanted to hear quickly from all of you. I'm curious about, I work here, so I'm sort of getting paid to be here, but where would you be today if you weren't here? So I don't know if we have any econ majors out here in the room, but we could call it your opportunity cost, right? So if you weren't here, where were you going to be today? Who wants to share that information? Right? What was your option of not being here? The beach? A pool? Sorry? University, maybe studying? Yes? Volunteering, beautiful, volunteering. I was thinking like video game tournament, fun stuff. Anyway, my point is there's a lot of other things you could be doing today. And the fact that you're here, gives me a great feeling, and, we really, we need you to be here. So here are the couple of things that I did want to say to you. So first, we're here also marking the International Day of Youth. And as you know, there is a youth strategy at the United Nations. It's fairly new, but it's very specific, and the UN system is very much behind it to engage and empower young people. And in the Department of Global Communications, we are making that a lot of efforts to reach out and to communicate to youth, and including by using social media, and I think pretty effectively. Who here follows the UN or some UN accounts on social media? Would you mind sharing with me one that you, particularly seems to be popping up in your feed, or a person that you're following at the UN? Anyone? Hawa Diallo, Salone Titihawa. Who else are we following? Ali? Okay, Jeff Prez, yes, thank you very much. So UNICEF, yep, at UNICEF. All right, so there's lots of ways that you can get information about the UN on social media across languages and across many different platforms. So, okay, we get a little point, right? A point for really making a lot of effort to reach out to young people. I know that young people aren't the only ones on social media, but so we're making that effort. Our Secretary General is also on social media. Who follows the Secretary General? Great. What's his name? Fantastic. Okay. So next, I'm the chief of something called NGO Relations. We do a couple of other things on our team as well, but the civil society part is a very big part of my job. And through us, NGOs apply for formal association with the Department of Global Communication. And that gives that organization 6 of these UN grounds passes. And we are the only part of the UN that says, okay, you get 6 passes, but 2 of those are allocated specifically for youth. If you don't have youth delegates, or if you're not youth run, then you can't use those passes. So that's another thing we're doing, another little point for us to give you access and to really encourage others to make sure that the doors are open for young people. Who has a UN grounds pass in the room? Way high up. Hi. Fantastic. That's a pretty big number. people in this room. Fantastic. Okay. So we also work with, so among that group, there are more than 500 young people that hold a UN grounds pass. You can come in, attend meetings at your will, network, so very, very useful. We also work with and mentor directly some of these youth in our youth steering committee. It's a little more formal, and we work a little more closely with them. Any youth steering committee members in the room? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so another opportunity if you want to get more involved. Another little point for us. Okay, I'm just pointing up. So also in NGO relations, we organize a major global conference, and that was also mentioned by Andrew. Thank you very much. And your topic today is very much linked to our conference that's coming up in less than 2 weeks. I can't believe it. We're going to Salt Lake City. It's going to be incredible. Who's coming to Salt Lake City? So young people are involved in the planning process, not just, participating, but really in leadership positions across every aspect of planning of this conference. And that means giving their opinions and doing things from making sure that the over 150 workshop proposals that we got were in line with the themes of the conference, and that the contents were fitting with the theme of the conference. So reviewing all of those. Exhibits, many aspects. And there is a youth subcommittee which is in charge of planning the youth thematic session, which is a major thematic session. At least 1,000, if not 2,000 or more people will attend that session, and youth put that together. And there's a youth hub. The youth are in the lead on programming that youth hub. So they have a lot of space, and they're in the lead on programming and deciding what's going to happen in that space. So another little point for us, but of course a point for the young people as well. So I don't know if you've been counting the points, but obviously the point is not the points here. The point is that you are the point, because without you, young people who have shown that you are passionate and you want to do something, being here today, it all means nothing. So we can give access, we can try to make access, we can try and work together, but if you're not interested, nothing's going to happen. So I'm going to guess one final thing about you today. You came here because in addition to having a passion, you have an idea. You have an idea about something that you can do to help achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. You have an idea for climate action. And maybe you're already even doing something and you want to build on it. You want to make it stronger. You want to increase your impact. Maybe you're here, though, with a lot of passion, and you're still working on your voice and trying to figure out how to channel that action. For all of that, I think that this is going to be very useful for you and very useful for me, because I'm here to learn from you. I'm here to understand where your passion lies, your ideas, and how we can make our platforms and our events, because we have a lot of them, useful for you. I want them useful for you so that you can come, and if you need to find your voice, and we can help you find it here, and you and your other peers. If you have a plan and you want to build on your plan and make it bigger, then we can help you do that here. So that's our objective. You are the focus of that objective, and I really appreciate that you're here today. And so now it's my turn to sit down and listen to you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jeff. And now we'll have a panel discussion for the day on youth for inclusive, sustainable communities, a theme that touches on many of the most pressing issues facing youth in the world today. So I'm pleased to welcome our panel and introduce them. First, starting with Kekashan Basu, who's founder and president of Green Hope Foundation, a UN human rights champion, Canada's top 25 women of influence, winner of the 2016 International Children's Peace Prize, and a climate reality leader. Mark Chambers, who is director of the New York City Mayor's Office of Sustainability. Simon Sylvester Chaudhry, who is executive director of CivLab. Soraya Fouladi, who is founder and CEO of Jara. And Alexandria Villaseñor, who is founder of Earth Uprising, a Fridays for Future organizer and climate activist. Today's moderator will be Jediah Spencer. Jediah is a member of the United Nations Department of Global Communications and the youth representative on the steering committee. Jediah, I give you the floor.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. How is everyone feeling? How are you actually feeling? Like spirit check. I'm sorry. My name is Jadea. I'm with the Youth Representative Steering Committee here with the Department of Global Communication, and I'm also the Executive Director of the International Youth Leadership Institute. Perhaps more importantly for this conversation, I come from a place called Brooklyn. And in Brooklyn, we have this value of like just keeping it real. So when I ask you like, how are you doing? Like if you're actually feeling good, then show us that you're in fact feeling good. So and if you're not feeling good, then that's okay. You can be like, meh, that's totally fine. So actually, how are you?
Yeah.
Turn to the person next to you and ask how they are.
How you doing?
How are you?
I'm good. You?
I'm doing better.
I'm bringing some Brooklyn to this fight.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You know what I'm saying? Right? You know, because it's just like in preparation for this conversation, first of all, thank you, you know, for taking the time to let's like be honest in this space, because part of what makes this work is like honesty. And in order to achieve the goals that we have to be able to keep it real with each other. We have to be able to keep it real on all levels. So first I want to say thank you all for your time and for being here and for sharing and contributing your energy. We have a really excellent and awesome constellation of panelists here, like actual stars from all over the world and from also right here. And in preparation for this, so we started to really think about like, well, what does it mean? Like the title of our session right now is titled Youth for Sustainable Communities. And when we think about like what that actually means with youth, just meaning like young people, however it is that you might define it, the definition, I started to wonder, okay, well, what does it actually mean for something to be sustainable? And a definition that has stood out just straight up from the dictionary was just, you know, able to be maintained at a certain level. Another definition was able to be upheld or defended. And another definition was conserving an ecological balance by avoiding depletion of natural resources. And so like that's kind of like the world that we're working toward, in that the world that we're living in right now, as we know, is not necessarily so sustainable. We see that in the effect that so much of our way of life has had on the planet all around us. But around where there are also problems, there are also solutions to be had too. So then I started to wonder also, when we say community, what does that actually mean? And so our panelists will also share about that, but just something to marinate on as we're about to like get into this session. One definition of community, a group of people just living in a place, right? That's one definition of community. A body of nations or states unified by common interests. Start thinking about what those interests are. And another is a feeling of fellowship with others as a result of sharing common attitudes, interests, and goals. A similarity or identity. So we as people have our own little communities, right? So for me, Brooklyn counts as one community. Can someone else, you can just call it out. Where are you from in the room? I'm loving it. So, all right, so from what I just heard, I heard Australia, I heard Panama, I heard South Africa, Pakistan. All right, we gotta chill. Let's bring it back. But this is what I'm saying, right? These are the communities that we come from, and we're very proud of that, and it's so beautiful to see. And we also are part of a global community. The fact that we have a planet that we can call our own, the fact that we have like a sky to be under, whole clouds to give us rain, whole places to get to visit. These are things that there are communities that are imagined that become real, and communities that are enforced by geography or history or culture. But just start to think about like what communities you belong to and where sustainability can fit in. And that's why I'm so excited to get into our panel discussion. And I won't say any more. I'm just going to pass it off to our first panelist so that she can share with you about the work that she's been doing in order to help make her community and our shared global community more sustainable. So I'll pass it off first to Kekesha Basu to share with us about her work. Please welcome her with a warm communal round of applause. Kekesha, let's get this started. Yeah?
Oh, thank you. Does this work? Yeah. Thank you, Jadea. So 7 years ago, on this very day, a group of 5 girls got together, and these 5 girls were in their early teens. They got together in Dubai to formally establish a youth advocacy platform to engage their peers in environmental advocacy. And it was led by a 12-year-old who had just returned from Brazil after attending the Rio+20 Earth Summit as one of its youngest delegates, and who was, to put it mildly, quite aghast at the lack of inclusivity of young people, especially children, in the discussions on the Sustainable Development Roadmap. That 12-year-old is speaking to you right now. Thank you. And the social innovation enterprise that we established, Green Hope Foundation, now has a presence in 14 countries with 1,362 members working at a grassroots level to empower youth to drive local actions on the SDGs. Now, we're living at a time of great transformation where the fourth industrial revolution intersects with the Anthropocene. And in a world of 7 billion plus people, every action, every breath that we take impacts our environment, our planet, and our future. And with the global population moving irrevocably towards cities and human settlements, there is a tremendous pressure on the environment and its natural resources. So while technological advancements are throwing up immense and unimaginable opportunities, the fact remains that it remains out of reach of the vast majority. Add to this another truth, that all the indicators point to a widening of this gap. The statistics say it all. Half of humanity, that's 3.5 billion people, live in cities right now, and this number is set to grow to 5 billion by 2030. Add to this the fact that the world's cities only occupy about 3% of Earth's land, but they amount for 60 to 80% of global energy consumption and 75% of the world's carbon emissions. And 95% of urban expansion in the next decades will take place in the developing world, which is already challenged infrastructurally, where civic bodies suffer from a chronic lack of funding, where urban planning is rudimentary, where corruption runs rampant, and where rules are often only followed on paper. And with the inadequate mechanisms for waste disposal and the rampant usage of plastic, we are literally choking our urban environments. One of the greatest challenges remains access to clean drinking water. And large cities, be it New Delhi or Nairobi, are already facing the challenge of accessing potable drinking water. And the people who are always affected the most are those who are most vulnerable, and foremost amongst them are children and youth, and amongst them, girls. And in such situations of meager resources, we're the ones who find ourselves the most dispensable. That is why you will find young girls being forced to work as rag pickers, rummaging through toxic landfills, which are now an inevitable part of most large cities in the world, instead of going to school like their male counterparts. Crime, abuse, exploitation go hand in hand with this inequality. Gender equality and justice are one of the key focus areas that Green Hope works on so that we can rectify this disparity that afflicts our urban societies.
And thank you for reminding us of the intertwining intersections of gender and of climate action, and reminding us to just challenge what we understand as being normal. I don't know, you couldn't see my face from there, but all of I'm like, huh, what, how? Thank you so much again. And just keeping in mind with that same, like, I think it's actually a perfect segue, like what you were mentioning about like what we can do within our own cities in order to further sustainability. As a New Yorker, one thing that I am very happy about is that like our administration like has like explicitly, at least explicitly like mentioned and said that sustainability is something that we care about as a city. As Kekesha mentioned, that it's not something that can only be done on a legislative level. We as individuals have to also get involved, but it is definitely helpful when your government does like put forth like help as well. You know, we all have something, we all have skin in the game here, and we all have something to contribute. So with that, I'd like to pass it off to Mark Chambers, the director of the New York City Mayor's Office of Sustainability. Thank you very much.
Thank you. What's that? No, I mean, it's an amazing act to follow. I mean, I think that Kekesha did not just an amazing job, but also, like, I got a page full of notes here because that's exactly the type of inspiring, but also, like, informative information that we need to have, and we need to be able to have that. So I almost wouldn't mind, just for me personally, is giving you another round of applause for that, because that was amazing. So my name is Mark Chambers, and I'm the Director of Sustainability for the amazing, but also the great sanctuary city that is New York. And I say that very intentionally, right? Because it's important for us to keep in mind that New York City is a haven, not just for people, but also for ideas. And for us to be able to push on what is the generational challenge of our lifetime, it requires us to have those havens that can protect ideas and protect the people that come in to those cities, no matter who you are, no matter what you look like, no matter where you come from or who you love. Like, New York City is a place for you, and that's important to remember. We are constantly in a struggle to define the role of cities when the federal government does not support the same agenda. And so for us, it's important to make sure that you all know that you're welcome here, and I appreciate that. When we look at New York City, a city of 8.6 million people, it's important to understand that there's a lot going on here. And we are constantly kind of vibrating in place and constantly trying to make sure that we are able not just to define New York City for the 5 boroughs here, but also as the nation's largest city, we have to do more than that. You know, climate change doesn't just respect the boundaries of our city, and so we have to lead for other cities. And within that, and within the world of governance for a city like New York, my responsibility is to truly kind of define and to limit the impact that the city is having on this generational challenge, the impact that it's having, and how we are contributing to climate change.
What office we're coming from, what country we're coming from, what level of government we're in, we're all still like one students of life and students of each other, and everyone here has something to offer. So especially, I would call out to you, he asked for unapologetic critiques. So I'd like to start. The A train, sir. I'll go with that later. But he's the state, not the city. It's hilarious. But, well, he did ask for unapologetic critiques and also for advice. So, like, remember, if you have something that you can offer in order for, you know, for the betterment of us all, like, this is something that, you know, I would also extend to myself and, like, for those of us in this room, that we should all be open to that. And I want to thank you for modeling that and for mentioning that and just, you know, giving us in the city something more to be proud of with that kind of intention that we're working toward. And so just as Mark mentioned, that it's not just about, like, it's about what we do as individuals. It's about, like, what we do and then how we do it. It's also about, like, how we can work together and collaborate, because just as he mentioned, that we're here to learn from each other. So we're about to hear from Simon Sylvester Chowdhury, and he'll be able to tell you more about the work that he's been doing to convene and bring these different folks together so that we can all, like, one, be learning from each other and actually work toward the kind of solutions that it'll take for us to, like, live in the kind of cities and the kind of communities that we all can prosper and thrive in. So let's pass it off to Simon. Thank you.
Thank you, Jedi. I appreciate it. And I think I have a deck. Oh, there it is. Do I just say next slide? Okay, so you're going to hear that a few times from me. First of all, thank you for all the organizers for having me. This is really special. It's great to see such a full and energetic audience, but a diverse audience. I come from the area of innovation. I actually come from economics and policy background, but that's led into a career in innovation. And we can't innovate without diversity. We can't represent everybody if it's not by everybody. So I really appreciate the diversity out there. And I really kind of want to echo and kind of do a segue from what Kekashan and Mark said. You know, she pointed out that it takes everybody and it takes a lot of different types of stakeholders. You'll see in my presentation that that's the approach that we've taken, and we believe it takes different types of stakeholders and expertise to move the needle, to solve things like climate change. And then also just kind of want to also echo Mark in terms of this kind of bottoms-up organic approach and how New York is looking at things and looking at it from a role model perspective, because we also think about that. And it's not just New York, it's other cities around the world that can set the model for other places. And so learning from each other is incredibly crucial. And so that's why it's really important for everyone to be here today. I'm going to quickly go through some of the new problems we're seeing, but the most important thing is to talk about the solutions, right? And so power is really changing on the world. So this is a presentation I've done. I've cut it down by about a third, and hopefully I'm going to breeze through it really quickly. You all are really smart, so hopefully you can pick it up. And if you can't, my email will be at the end, and I'm happy to send it to you. So next slide. So cities have the capability of providing something for everybody only because and only when they are created by everybody. This is by Jane Jacobs, who is from Toronto. And if you don't know about Jane Jacobs, she was an activist in the 70s and 80s and really was someone who promoted parks and walking and bikes. This was a time when New York was going through a stage led by a man named Robert Moses, who led, I think, 16 departments at the city one point, who was someone who was looking at infrastructure and concrete and looking at that towards driving the economy. But she said, no, cities are going to be better when they're led and when they're places where people can live. Next slide. That's a picture of Jane. Next slide. So urbanization for me is the defining force of the 21st century. A lot of you know this stat, but by 2050, 80% of the world will live in cities. Next slide. Cities are the world. There you go. That's kind of the stat I just said. And, you know, Kekashan actually said that stat, so we're going to go to the next slide again.
So just let that like marinate for a second, and also just extend that as you think about if you yourself like have solutions, if you yourself are already like looking for organizations to plug into and you have like suggestions, like this is exactly the kinds of opportunities and spaces that you want to be in. So just think about that as well. And so right now I'll pass it off to Soraya, who will be sharing with us about the work that she's been doing in terms of education and technology in order to also further sustainable community. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Do you remember that time where you had that big idea to change the world? I hope after what I share, you will go out and make that a reality. Hi there, my name is Soraya Fouladi. I am the founder and CEO of JARA. Our goal is to scale quality education to some of the most vulnerable communities out there, such as post-disaster zones, refugee camps, and more. And we're doing this through an innovation we're co-creating alongside these communities. This is the JARA unit. It's a crank-powered, solar-powered education device, and we're designing it to be able to teach children any content in any language, anytime, anywhere. It can, thank you. And right after graduation, instead of taking my comfortable, very secure jobs, I left to the Bay Area, Silicon Valley, to start this on $0 and did everything I can to make it happen along the way. And we're aiming for a 2020 launch with us at JARA. So where we are at JARA so far is we've aggregated 7 years of research on how effective is teaching, especially in vulnerable communities, using devices like this, what is required to get there. We're designing this to charge off the grid, which is a specific feature that we've designed alongside off-the-grid communities. This device is to be used in under-resourced classrooms during self-study time. Unfortunately, in many post-disaster zones, 75% of the day often ends up being self-study time because there's not enough teachers to be able to teach. And unfortunately, the materials the children are using are not sustainable either. The materials they're using are often workbooks they've already completed, hence the high dropout and failing rates globally. This device is also to be used at home because often in the communities that are very vulnerable that we're working in, children don't even have books or internet at home to learn new things. This is also a solution for out-of-school children, such as child laborers and women who are not able to leave their houses. Our aim is to integrate this alongside teachers, for this to be a better and more interactive workbook, a tutoring device, a quizzing device, a literacy device, because there's a speaker that could teach any content in any language. And it's updatable through Internet of Technology, IoT technology, that enables us to track specific impact metrics, update content, and enable the content on the device to grow with the child as they grow through the education system. We partner with digital education content creators and content sourcing organizations to ensure that the content is culturally relevant, and so much more. There is a humongous disparity to quality education between urban and rural communities globally. We at JARA are focused on bridging the gap through our solution being built and focused and designed with rural communities, because if it can work in rural communities, it can work in urban communities too. We are building with these communities and not for. And if any of you are designing innovations alongside vulnerable communities, make sure to build it with the communities. Bring them to the table. Don't build it for them. Don't build it in a bubble. It's not going to work. The world doesn't have time to wait. People's lives won't wait. If you want to change the world and don't have an idea yet, join an initiative that is already doing so or on its way to doing so. We at JARA are always looking for new team members, new volunteers to join us, so please reach out or talk to me after. Even when there are storms outside, like today, that doesn't stop any of us. We all showed up today. We are here. And we show up every day to change the world. The time is now for the world to listen to us, to listen to the youth. We need to start not just a revolution, but an evolution. The evolution to the world listening to us, the youth, as the solutioneers. Why? We see what's happening. We see that the world is in pain. And we know how to be resourceful and do everything in our power to make a difference. And also we have hope, something many others have unfortunately lost. Let's turn our hope into action. Remember the time you asked yourself, what if I did something big? Well, the time is now. Let your imagination of a better world become reality. That's our superpower. I believe in a world of dignity, empowerment, and agency for all, and that starts with us. Will you join the evolution? Thank you.
I don't know about y'all, but I'm feeling so full.
And the mass manufacturing version will be even more durable than that.
Yeah, she said that this version is, but the mass manufactured version will be even more durable. It's just so empowering to see, one, like lady electrical engineers, one. Two, right? Woo. Okay. That's so beautiful. And then also like the takeaway that I've also just been hearing throughout this whole panel, just in that it's important when we build things, when we're talking solution, that we include, that we're not just coming up with solutions without including the people for whom we're designing these solutions, right? So this is something that we speak about a lot, like with the Youth Representative Steering Committee as well. This looks like, for example, just saying, no rooms that are making decisions about the lives of women without women actually being present. Just an example. like no making decisions that impact the lives of everyone without including everyone. And I think that it sounds obvious, but it's just something that, lots of people need to hear. So let's like make sure that we're pushing that message as well. And also just constantly thinking about who is not in the room. And how can we make life better for those who are not in the room? Because just as Soraya said, it's, we are all in this together. We all have a stake for it. And you have the ability to create an idea that can end up positively impacting people who you'll never meet. So just think about that. I feel so full. Ooh, I need to take a minute. So lastly, on that same note, I want to introduce Alexandria Villaseñor, who, in addition to being the founder of Earth Uprising, in addition to being a Fridays for the Future organizer, she's also a 14-year-old climate activist. Okay? So, we like to end things with a bang. Last but not least, I'll pass it to you, Alexandria. Share with us what's on your mind. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me here today, and it's great to be on such a wonderful panel next to so many amazing speakers, so thank you. So it's honestly great to be here with you for International Youth Day and to discuss inclusive and sustainable cities while in the greatest city in the world. So as some of you may already know, I'm 14 years old, and I've been on climate strike in solidarity with Greta Thunberg and the Fridays for Future movement right out in front of this building every Friday for 35 weeks. But what you may not know is that the story of my climate activism was made possible because of this amazing city that I live in. When I moved here last August from Northern California, I didn't plan on becoming a climate activist. Instead, I had romanticized all of the wonderful things I'd be able to do while living in New York City. But then last November, I returned to California to visit family, and during my trip, the Paradise Fire broke out and quickly became the worst wildfire in California history. 250 square miles burned, thousands of homes were destroyed, and many people died. To protect my health, my family sent me back to New York City early. When I returned, I researched the effects of climate change, and I learned that the climate crisis is fueling California's wildfires, along with extreme weather and disasters all over the planet. This upset me, and after hearing Greta Thunberg speak at COP24, I began my climate strike on December 14th of 2018. In the beginning, I didn't think anyone would notice me. I thought my protests would be invisible. But cities are like magic. Because I lived in this amazing city, I was able to choose someplace symbolic, like the United Nations headquarters.
We pose the questions, we'll pick up like 3, and then we as a panel will answer them. If you have a question for someone specifically, please feel free to point that out. And let's see. Also, I want to mention that the conversations that we're having here can absolutely continue. This session is in support of the Civil Society Conference, and that the Youth Representative Steering Committee is hosting another conversation like this. Was it Friday at 6? And there'll be pizza. So if you want to drink, you can talk to us about that too. We'll bring that up again, but the conversation is not going to end here. So just think about that before we ask that question. Okay, anyone got questions? I'm just going to go with the first hands I see. I see 1 here. I'll take one from the side here, 2 here. Anyone from, trying to look for any, nobody all the way in the back wants to ask a question, really. Thank you, sir. Okay, so that's here. 1, 2, and 3. So just take that in order. If you could please just state your name, your org, and your brief question, and then we're going to do it in rapid succession. Please go. Yes, sir. I'll be taking notes of the questions also.
Hi, my name is Alfred Diallo. I'm one of the youth community members, and I also represent an NGO called ANDA, Stand for Environmental Development Action for our country. So my question is direct to Mark, if I pronounce it right. So, as you were talking about transportation, especially in New York City, so the question that I have, because I know the lot time that the taxi company produce a lot of carbon dioxide in the air, so I was thinking about as the TLC thinking about the planning the tactic of FHT company like to transfer from gas car to electric cars? Because I know like it's really hard to get a TSC pin because they basically close that up. Is there anything that you can give up on that? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. On to the next question to my right. You got to press the button and wait for it to turn red. Yep, there you go.
Country like South Sudan. Yeah. For a country like South Sudan, having had the longest civil war in Africa, and with an ongoing civil war until now, it's very, very hard for us to align our goals and missions with other youth on the ground. Because I'm very privileged to travel and come here, and I am aware of the climate change challenges and its impact, particularly in the West. However, when I go back home, people need food, people need security, people need shelter. It's very difficult to address them on, don't give away your daughters, we should end child marriage, we should advocate for climate change. How do you see, or how do you advise me to work synergetically with other people, other youth on the ground back in South Sudan, particularly in the East Coast? Thank you. Thank you. Question. And
like physical, but there's another dimension of the struggle that is the family level struggles. And I think we are not really secure if the families are not stable, if we do not live in a very stable families. And I think as activists, it's very important for us to think about how in the future we can really have very secure, stable families. And I think everything starts from there. And the second one is we are all young here, and most of us do not have many experience from the international level. I am from Africa, and I feel that many problems we are going through, like climate change and everything, it directly impacts Africa. And whatever we do right now is how we can really find a solution. And solution cannot be at a very local level, like here in New York or in America. There should be a global solution. So if there's anything that needs to be done, it needs to be done just to take it at a global level. So I would like to really thank all the activists who have really spoken and who are out there. But once again, I would like to really invite the young people to get involved more in politics. Because it is in politics, it is when you are at a level where you can make decisions that we can really bring a change. So that is, I don't have a specific question, but that's what I would like to really say. Thank you.
Or having a startup or another project in hand, but like in general, day-to-day life. An opinion or a statement from your thank you.
Sorry, we said that we would take 3 questions. We have 3 questions in the statement now. I'm very sorry, but I'm very sorry. But one thing I will say is that this conversation absolutely will continue, and you are absolutely invited to join us on Friday at 6 as well. If you have a question that's burning too, the people who are here may also stick around further too. I know how it feels to have a burning question, but we have some answers also that the folks on panel would like to give before we close out the session. I know it means we're having fun. There's so much coming, so I'll pass it off to Mark. There was a question specifically for you. The question was, has TLC thought about transferring from gas to electric cars? And then there's a question to everyone about how do we align with youth on the ground in light of the fact that, they are absolutely needed for survival, on top of the fact that we're talking about like long-term sustainable development goals, etc. So, and then the question about how we can get involved more in the UN. So, and I have an answer for that. But yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'll try to be brief about it. Of course, we know that electrifying transportation, moving away from an internal combustion engine, is critical to how we move forward. I'll say 2 about vehicles and about the ideas we have. One of the hallmarks of what we saw when Trump issued this travel ban and a particular company in New York City decided that they wanted to cross that boundary and start moving towards taking people back and forth to the airport, people began to delete that app. And so what I'm saying is just remember that you have the power to impact what these companies are doing in your phones. So don't underestimate that. And if you feel like they should be quickly moving towards electrifying their fleets and using all electric vehicles, let them know that with the power of your dollar or other currency, and let them and make sure that is clear. Now, the second part to that is part of being able to make sure that all of those vehicles, hundreds of thousands of vehicles all throughout the country and millions in the world, they need a charging infrastructure to be able to do that. So just make sure that you're also focusing on removing the obstacles for that shift to happen. In New York City, we are actively moving towards creating a network of charging infrastructure so that once we have places, hubs, where vehicles can actually pull in and do fast charging in 30 minutes versus 8 hours, then you have the leverage to be able to demand that the for-hire vehicles all switch to electrified vehicles, and they won't be able to cite the fact that they can't charge it enough to meet the demand. So look at removing obstacles and look at holding everyone accountable